The New Mexico Department of Game and Fish is interested in determining the average weight of adult mountain lions in the San Andreas Mountains. Some mountain lions from that region were captured and released, and we have their weights listed here. We want a 95% confidence interval for the population mean mountain lion weight in that area, and we need to comment on what conditions are required for it to be a valid confidence interval. So if we want a confidence interval for the population mean, what we're going to need from our data is a sample mean and a sample standard deviation. So we have this sample here of size 6. We have 6 observations, so n will be equal to 6 in our problem. To get the mean, we need to add up our data. If you add up 68, 104, 128, and so on, you'll get a sum of 546. So that our mean is 546 divided by 6, which is exactly 91. We also need our sample standard deviation, and for that we also have to get our sum of x's squared. So if you take 68 squared plus 104 squared plus 128 squared and so on, you'll get a sum of x's squared of 54404. So s here would be equal to the square root of 54404 minus the sum of x's, which was 546 squared. That number gets divided by n of 6, and we divide everything by n minus 1, which is 5. And so what you should get for your s here is 30.718. So the confidence interval looks like x bar, 91, plus or minus our t, which I'll look up in a second, times our s, 30.718, over the square root of n, which we said was 6. Now to get our t, we need a degrees of freedom, and for these problems looking for one population mean, the degrees of freedom is equal to n minus 1, so we have a degrees of freedom here of 5. We go into our t table, and we look in row 5, where we're looking for a 95% confidence interval. So you can look up the 95% along the bottom of the table. Here's our confidence level, and then you find row 5, and where those meet up is the t that you will need. And so that gives us this value of 2.571. So what you should get for the lower bound of this interval is 58.758, and the upper bound is 123.242. So that's a 95% confidence interval for the mean weight if you were looking at all mountain lions in the area. Now, confidence interval for a population mean is valid under one of two conditions. Either your distribution from which your data came needs to be normal, or if you don't have that or you're not sure of that, what you need to have is a large sample size. In this case, we do not have a large sample size. We only have a sample of size 6. So in order for this interval to actually be valid, we would need the data from the mountain lions to come from a normal distribution. Ways to check that is looking at plots to see if that appears to be valid.